This is BBQ Live. I'm your host, Lisa Blackwell, and today we've got Bruce Johnson with us from Deep South Sauce Company. He's going to be cooking up some bacon-wrapped meatballs and a side salad. I can't wait to try those meatballs. He was working on them earlier. They look awesome. Show us how it's done.
All right, thanks, Lisa. So we're going to be making some meatballs today that are based on basically a meatloaf recipe, right? So, you know, meatloaf is one of those things that's been around Americana for well, almost forever, but really through the Great Depression, it really got its name. So we'll talk a little bit more about the history later. So I got about a pound and a quarter of Hassell Cattle ground beef. It's roughly 80-20. And I'm gonna cut up about half a small onion. You can do a little bit more if you want, or a little bit less. The trick, as you can see, I've kind of cut an onion in half, went ahead and cut off the end and took out the outer skin. So I'm gonna, with my hand flat and my knife sort of at a down angle, I'm gonna make about 3 cuts into the onion, okay? Not all the way through, because I want the end of it to hold it all together. So about 3 cuts like that. Now I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna pinch it. I'm gonna take the tip of my knife and I'm gonna make several cuts into it. Again, not all the way up to the back, right? This is really gonna help us, and you'll see when I come down the front of it in our dice. So this will make your onion cutting much easier on the dice, right? So holding it together. Now, you got your 3 fingers, right? Hold with your pinky or your ring finger and your thumb, kind of pressing together. And I'm just gonna come down on the top of the onion and push away from me. And now you see all those dices I just made, right? Just be careful, make sure you don't have any fingers sticking in there. And there you go. Now I just diced my onion. So I'm gonna take that diced onion, I'm gonna put that on top of my meat there, right? I have 2 cloves of garlic. Now I could mince it if I wanted to, but I kind of like these little garlic presses. It makes it nice and easy. I'm just gonna go ahead and press it through. My next clove, and press it through, and take my knife and just kind of scrape it off there. All right, and then I'm gonna take about, you can use more if you want. This is about a half cup. You can use a cup of spinach that I pre-cooked, right? And then I wrapped it in paper towels and squeezed it out to get as much moisture as I could. I'm just gonna finely chop it, because I want that spinach to break apart into the meatballs and not be big chunks, right? So I'm just chopping it up. Put that in my mixture. All right, so typically, oh yeah, about a cup of grated cheese. I'm using smoked Gouda. I just like smoked Gouda. I think it just adds a little extra depth to the flavor. And I have a microplane here. I'm just gonna do about a cup of cheese. Just grate it in there. Shouldn't take too long. Now, typically a meatloaf, what's the definition of a meatloaf? Well, basically it is minced or ground beef with bread crumbs and milk. And that's pretty much a meatloaf. Well, how did they come up with that? Well, back probably in the 4th or 5th century AD, it's kind of up in the air between the Romans and the Asians, but somewhere in the middle there, it's recorded in a book that the Greeks put together called Epicurus. It had a recipe for minced meat, bread, and wine. So there you go. That was the first recorded from the Romans. In the Mediterranean, same thing, mincemeat, except they used nuts, fruits, berries, and also wine, and mixed that together and baked it. All right, so I put about half a cup of breadcrumb in there. I'm gonna crack an egg in there, and I'll mix that in. Now, instead of the milk, this is where we kind of take a turn. We're gonna use some of our Deep South Original Smoke barbecue sauce. So that's gonna give it that smoky outdoor flavor. I'm gonna come in with about half of what I put in for the breadcrumbs, so about a 1/4 cup. I'm just gonna eyeball it. There you go. And then also to help give it that extra flavor, I'm gonna do about 3 tablespoons of the all-purpose BBQ Sweet Home all-purpose rub. So about 3 tablespoons, right? So for me, that's about 3 in the crook of my hand. We're not big into fine measurement here, right? So I had my onion. I think I got everything in there, and now I'm just gonna get in there with my hands and mix it up, right? You just wanna incorporate all those flavors. All right, so we got the meatloaf, 4th, 5th century AD. The Romans, the Mediterranean, the medieval Europeans were using this Mediterranean recipe. But it didn't really come over to the United States till about the 1800s. And in the late 1800s, when the meat grinder was invented, was when it really took off. But the first real time that it was used was in the 1870s in the Northeast. And because of the winters up there, they killed their cows so that they didn't have to feed them through the winter. And they wanted to get as much as they could out of those cows with all the scraps and all that. So they would cut it up, mince it, grind it, and then they would mix it with sliced onions, bread, milk, and other spices that they had around. But they would eat that for breakfast. That would actually be a breakfast meatloaf for them. All right, so I'm making about 2-ounce balls, right? You want them to be uniform in size, roughly about 2 ounces. You could use, I have a scale over here, you could use that. But for the interest of time, I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it. I've made enough of these by now that I kind of know what 2 ounces feels like. If you get 2.1, no one's gonna care on it at all. So the 1870s, then in the 1890s, there we go. In the 1890s, with the real meat packing improvements and stuff like that, the meat grinder was invented. Now they've started coming up with ground beef more than mincemeat, and it's really started to take off and become a loaf, and people are starting to use it more and more. You move into the 1930s, the Great Depression, people are really starting to use it because you can stretch the meat, the protein, with other things, like, you know, we're adding the breadcrumbs and things like that. You can stretch the meat out so that you can take inexpensive cuts of meat and feed a whole bunch of people a whole lot easier. All right. And then in World War II, in the 1940s, became very patriotic because of all the savings everybody was trying to do, and they were shipping a lot of meat overseas. So the people back home were trying to cut back. They actually called it a vitality loaf, and they would take ground beef, mix it with pork and liver and other parts of animals and meats that they didn't like, and mix that together to stretch it out, and they would call it a vitality loaf. Here we are, we're wrapping up here. I've got, you know, this recipe makes about, if you're pretty accurate, around 16 meatballs.
Hey, I'm just coming over here to check out how this is going here. Talk to us about what kind of meat you're using.
I'm sorry, yeah, I'm using the Hassell Cattle, 80/20 ground beef.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm about to pull out the Compart applewood smoked bacon that I'm going to wrap it in.
Their bacon is amazing. That is so good. Well, I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to this.
Sure.
You know, I just got to come over and check in.
Yeah, so, you know, the Hassell Cattle beef is going to add moisture into that as well. You know, hopefully you have access to that. If not, you know, use an 80/20, 75/25, something like that. If you go leaner, or if you use turkey or something like that, you're going to need to add more moisture in there.
You need that moisture.
For sure. Yep.
Yeah, they look
And you
great.
could use other things. I put spinach. You could add pretty much whatever you want as you're filling. So,
spinach is good with me.
Yeah,
I'll be
thanks.
back with my
Thanks.
appetite.
So, you know, the bacon and the 2 ounce is going to be a little long, so I'm going to take the bacon and I'm just going to cut it in half, right? Pull that out. Now, one of the tricks that I use when wrapping things in bacon, now this is thick bacon, which is good. You kind of pull it and stretch it a little bit. If you can get it a little warmer, I pulled this right out of the cooler. And you're going to want to put the meatball in there, lift up the end, and you're just going to roll it like that. And then place it back down so that the two pieces of bacon are on the bottom so it holds. If you want to make this more of an appetizer, you certainly could use toothpicks to hold this together. And I have some soaking in water. You would make sure you want to soak it in water because you are going to have it on the grill at about 350 for this size meatball, maybe 40, 45 minutes to get it done. You want the internal temperature to get to 165. Since it's ground beef, you want it to be done. All right, so where do we leave off? World War II. In the 1950s, Betty Crocker came along, and she had some recipes for meatloaf in her cookbook. And of course, all the people started with her basic meatloaf recipe. They started tweaking it over the next several years to their own, culture, etc. And in I want to say 57, maybe it's 58, a book called 365 Ways to Cook Hamburger came out. And it had over 70 recipes in it for meatloaf. So clearly, meatloaf has been in the American culinary lexicon for quite some time in many different varieties. And then lately, in the 90s, some innovative restaurateurs kind of took up that traditional Americana recipe of the meatloaf and started doing things like wrapping it in bacon, stuffing it with cheeses and other things, and kind of elevated it to restaurant level food versus the budgetary, family-minded recipe that it started out to be. And now we've taken all that and we've continued to elevate it like I've done today, to take a meatloaf type recipe, tweak it a bit to use barbecue sauce instead of the milk, wrap it in some applewood smoked bacon, and we're going to finish it after I get all these wrapped. We'll put it on and we will finish it towards the end with some of our Deep South sauce as well, give it that barbecue feel. So it's going to be this is a great tailgating idea. These are, bite size. If you got a big mouth, maybe 2 bites otherwise. At least it's probably 4 bites on this one. But we'll get these, at cookouts, tailgates. They're great for appetizers too, at dinner parties if need be. And so today, to make it kind of a meal and think about it as a nice summer tailgate or something out by the pool in the backyard, you can make these meatballs ahead of time, put them in the fridge, let them rest overnight, and then pop them on the grill whenever you're ready to. So it's kind of easy to set up early on. So, all right, so I've wrapped these. I've set up our Weber gas grill here as indirect heat. So I have the burners on the right side on, not on the left. Set up for about, this is running about 375, that's fine. I'm going to put it on the indirect side right there, and I'm going to check on those probably in about 30 minutes. While we're waiting for those, I'm going to show you a little bit of a trick we can do. Get some of my gloves changed out here for some other ideas. Also in the summertime, you want to have nice, easy, cool kind of appetizers that you can eat and have. Easy, that you can pass out, store, keep in the fridge if you need to. Just going to clean up here for a second. Get this out of the way. Let's Let's see here. Whoa. There we go. That's a good knife. So I'm going to take some carrot, celery, and some red peppers. And I'm just going to make a little quick appetizer that we can have as well while we're waiting for the meatballs to cook. So I just have some celery, carrots that I pre-bought, already cut, made life easy for me. Got some yellow and red pepper here. I'm just going to come down the side of the pepper, avoiding the seeds on the core. Like that. Same with the red. Just down the edge. There we go. And I'm looking for some strips that basically are going to mirror the carrot, right? So just come in here, cut some strips. I'm going to add it to the cup, and then the bottom of the cup, we're going to add some ranch dressing. And that'll be a great little appetizer that you can have. So I'm just going to put 2 of each in each cup. There you go. Some yellow in there. I just like, you know, make sure the colors pop. You could put some cherry tomatoes on a toothpick in there as well if you like. Almost any crunchy, fresh vegetable will do. All right, so our vegetables are ready to go. Take your favorite ranch dressing, and you can just put that down the side and the bottom, and they have their own ranch dipping cup and appetizer that you could just set out and they can come get it. It's great for the kids, etc., that they have a quick snack while they're out there, right? So that was just a quick and easy little thing we could put together. All right. So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to just kind of get ready to plate. So to go with the meatballs, I have just a nice fresh arugula and field green salad that we're just going to kind of do a fruit nut cheese. So I just did the salad ahead of time, had it in the cooler. There we go. So I've taken some apple and I've cubed it, and I put a little lemon juice on it to keep it from browning. Just going to sprinkle some of that on. I've taken some nuts. You could get fancy. These are walnut, and you could put them in the oven or whatever to heat them up, toast them as well. And I got some crumbled blue cheese. So a nice fresh salad and a cherry vinaigrette. I think that's going to go great with our barbecue sauce on top of our meatballs. And then now, let's see how the meatballs turned out here. Yeah, so I did some earlier. I think our current ones are nice and cooking away there, so you can kind of see how the bacon's starting to render down. The beef is starting to cook. When these get about 10 minutes away from being done, I'll glaze them with barbecue sauce. But we got just a little bit of time left there.
They look like they're cooking up really well.
Yeah, we did some earlier. So we'll just get these over here.
Tell you what, those look amazing.
So we got the Hassell Cattle ground beef mixed with spinach, Gouda cheese, onion, garlic, breadcrumbs, Deep South Sauce Company, barbecue sauce, the Compart Duroc apple smoked bacon, wrap, and then again glaze it with our barbecue sauce
with the
there
barbecue
at the end,
sauce.
with our side salad there.
Right here, this one.
Yep,
Deep South
the
Original
Deep South
Smoke.
Original Smoke.
That's good stuff.
There
That's
you
my
go.
favorite.
There
It looks
you go.
beautiful, and I like how well the bacon stayed wrapped around the
Yes,
meatball.
yeah,
It
if you have
hasn't
it
let
on the
go.
bottom, if you have it on the bottom, it'll cook together and stay.
So do I get to try one?
You do.
Which one shall I
let's
try?
do one of these back here, and don't ruin
We
the
won't mess with the
presentation.
presentation.
Yep.
We won't make the photographer mad. That is delicious.
Thanks. That spinach also helps add moisture into it. So, you know, if you let it go a little long, it certainly won't dry out just because you went just a touch long with it.
That is really good. And the bacon is still staying to it, which is nice. Because when you take a bite out of it, it's not going to fall apart in your hands. It's a good finger food kind of thing.
Exactly.
The salad looks fabulous. I love your idea for the appetizer for the kids. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, being outside, grilling with the family outside, it's, you know, it's nice and fun, trying to incorporate them in it as well. And what's better than a nice healthy snack while they're waiting.
This is so good.
Thank you.
I can barely talk here with all this food in my mouth. Well, we hope that you got another great recipe today. This is something you can definitely try at home. I can vouch for it. It is absolutely delicious. We thank you so much for watching today, and we hope you'll join us next time on Barbecue Live.
Thank you.